Welcome to the Ignorance is Strength podcast. I'm your host, Fabian motherfucking Ojeda, and I don't know shit, but that's okay. All right, let's get this shit started. Thank you, everybody, for listening to the Ignorance is Strength podcast. Hope you all enjoyed episode number 67 with Joshua Christian Azali, the model turned actor. You know, he's at the start of his journey, trying to break into, entertainment in one way or another. But we're back with a brand new guest, and he's already got his foot in the door. He's been doing this for a long time. I want to welcome author, filmmaker, rocker, and I think he's probably good at everything that ends in an ER. I'm sure you're a great sandwich maker too.
I do make a good sandwich.
There you go. I want to welcome to the podcast, Mr. Darren Dowler. How you doing, Darren?
I am fantastic, my friend. Thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here.
For sure. Yeah, and right before we started recording, I was just, like I said, I was admiring your studio there, man. And I've had a lot of musical guests on, and what do you got back there? I see is that an SG?
That is a special model SG. It is called the SG Supreme. They only made them for 2 years. Oh. And I happened to cross that guitar in New York about 20 some years ago. Mm-hmm. I literally plugged it into a Mesa Boogie amplifier. I strummed it 4 times, and it felt and sounded so good that I handed my credit card to the guy and said, "Ship this to my house."
Uh-huh. Yeah, man. So like just right off the bat, even before, any conversation, immediately seeing that on your wall there. And then, you give me your little virtual tour of the studio. That gets me excited, man. Cause like I said, I love music. I love talking music. But I want to talk about a few different things. And you're an all around entertainer, right? Is that, would you call yourself that?
Yeah, I would call it. That's exactly what I'd call myself. I'm an entertainer. I'm from even though I'm not as old as those guys, I studied the old school guys. When I grew up, I wanted to be able to play guitar and rock. I wanted to be able to dance. I wanted to be able to act and sing. And I love writing. I've been writing my whole life. I started my first book at 8 years old. Oh. And so, yeah, I'd say that's pretty much, I think you hit it right on the head. In my show, when I do my solo concert, not when I'm with the Raiders or like when I used to play with Bill Medley, the Righteous Brothers, I do their stuff. But when I do my show, it's a combination of music, comedy. I do impressions. So I do 15 or 20 minutes of comedy in the middle of the music. And then we go back to serious music. So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's one thing that I noticed, looking up your profiles and everything. I read impressionist. I'm like, that means you literally do like impersonations, impressions of like celebrities, or what's that all about?
I do celebrities. I do actors, presidents, people from TV, other musical artists. Everything from Satchmo to Sammy Davis Jr. to Jason Statham to Elvis Presley to Justin Timberlake. You name it, we do them all.
Well, you got to give us a sample, man. Give us maybe one of your better known impressions there.
This was one of my favorite ones. I actually did way back when he was president. I did a bunch of these as radio commercials back a long time ago, back in the mid-90s up to the late 90s. We were allowed to do impressions in commercials. We can't do them anymore without permission and money and all that stuff. But I used to do a lot of radio and TV commercials. Pretty much every commercial you heard that had Elvis's voice in it was me. And this next guy, you'll know, he was president for 8 years, and he was a very controversial guy. So all I'm going to say is, it's wonderful being here on your show. And the only regret I have is the woman I married.
Yeah, that would fool Monica there. I'm sure you can get Monica to your studio with that.
Oh, Monica just left. Thanks for asking about that.
Oh, she's right there under the desk.
That's funny. Hey, come out from under there, would you?
That's pretty good, man. I like that. Yeah, so I didn't know about that you couldn't do those on the radio anymore.
Well, you can't really, I can do them like in a podcast or if I'm doing my stand-up stuff or a part of my show. But yeah, if you do them as part of a paid commercial venture, now they want money for that stuff. And people still do it left and right. And a few of them get caught and a few of them don't. But I stopped doing it because, I'm high enough profile where, I'm seen pretty much and I would get caught and then I'd be in legal problems and all that. Right. Although yeah. I still have permission to do Elvis if I want to, because I actually did a show years ago, where I did a Broadway show about Elvis Presley many moons ago, and I still have permission from the Elvis estate to mimic Elvis and to do his voice and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Now, I wanted to touch first on what, you're a creative person. You write, you make movies, you make music, right? What came first? What was like your first interest, your first love, as far as like, an art?
Well, that would be without question music. When I was a kid, I'm actually from kind of a big musical family. Where my family is they're all from the Kentucky Hills. And in those days, in the early days, everybody played and sang and sat around, there's no radio or TV up there. So everybody played an instrument and sang or something. And so my grandparents, my great grandparents, my uncles, my aunts, my mother, my father were all singers, and my mom and dad were both entertainers. Mm-hmm. My grandmother sang on the radio when she was a teenager. And so it was music. Music was injected into me. My mother used to tell a funny story. She said, I would come home from work in the daytime and you were a baby. She goes, and I'd walk in, your dad's band would be rehearsing and he would have your crib between the two guitar amplifiers. And she said, and you'd be sleeping soundly while these guys were banging away music. So, yeah. And just to show you how far back it goes, my cousins, believe it or not, are Johnny Cash and June Carter and the whole Cash and Carter family.
Wow.
And the Golden family, Oak Ridge Boys. That's all one big family. We're not all close, but I mean, we're all part of the same line.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You must, you mentioned having that, that lineage, having all that influence. Like, how could you not get into entertainment at that point?
What's funny is I tried not to, honestly. I tried 15 ways to Sunday not to get into entertainment because I'm sure you are aware of this, other than a very, very small percentage of people that enter the music or film or acting business or whatever, only maybe 0.05% ever do anything with it and make it. It's a very hard business. There's no insurance, there's no retirement, there's no structure. You either basically get lucky, right place, right time, right talent,
right, or
you don't. And as a kid, my parents were entertainers and I saw the hardships that had on the family. So I actually tried not to be an entertainer. But every time I would try something to do something else, I would get shoved back into this. I mean, like, for instance, my first job was working in a hotel. I was working for $2.36 an hour carrying towels. I was a 12-year-old kid or 13-year-old kid carrying towels to floors to maids on a hotel floor in Florida. I was raised in Daytona Beach. And I remember this guy coming to me and he says, hey, your mom tells me you play acoustic guitar and sing, because I just strummed a few songs back then. And I said, yeah, I do a little bit. He goes, well, I want you to come sing at my pub at night, because back then you could do that. And I was like, well, no, I'm not interested. And I was making, if I worked an 8-hour day, I was lucky to make $24. Yeah. He goes, well, I'll give you $50 for 2 hours. And that's where it started. I was like, $50 for 2 hours of playing acoustic guitar and singing in a pub? I was like, I'm in, brother. And that's where it started. Yeah. But I tried being an athlete because I wanted to be a Florida Gator. So I tried playing different sports. I was training to be I was an amateur fighter back then, training to be a pro. Nice. And I kept getting shoved into music. Every time I tried to go do something would open up. I remember when this one guy called me, a guy named Paul Rogers called me, and he said, hey, man, I hear you're a lead guitar player. I said, yeah, I am. He goes, well, I need somebody to play lead guitar for the next few months. My lead guitar player's sick or something like that. And I was like, well, I'm not really interested. And then again, he named the paycheck. And I was like, wow, I get to play music and make that kind of money. I was like, I got to do this. So I did. I went off for a year with that guy and played guitar for him.
Yeah. And that, I like seeing people who, have made their passion, their life's work, essentially. I've interviewed other people that have, on different levels that have either started, their music career and they're in the early stages, or they've been doing it for quite a while, and they're kind of the journeyman, right?
Yeah.
And I appreciate that, because like I mentioned, I love music. At some point, if you were to ask me what I wanted to do when I was in high school, I'd be like, I'm gonna play music. Like, that's all I'm gonna do. But like you mentioned, you start seeing, the money, and I saw it the other way, where I was like, hey, I'm not making any money, but they'll pay me, $500 if I want to be somebody's bodyguard for a whole weekend or whatever. And I did like bouncer work and security. And now to me, it kind of satiated that, need for like the entertainment lifestyle and whatnot, because I would still see, like cool celebrities every now and then and whatnot, but it wasn't the same. I wasn't creating anything. And so, that to me, I think, you're when you give up your passion and just start making, money that is essentially empty, it kind of sucks, man. So I really appreciate seeing the people that, can make, music or film or whatever they're interested in, their career, their life's work. That to me is, it's impressive. I like seeing it.
Yeah, I agree. I feel the same way when I see somebody who's making it work. Like for instance, you're making it work now doing this, and this is the wave of the future. Like podcasts are like the thing right now. And I've heard so much about yours, and it's a really good show. And everybody I've talked to about it says, yeah, it's a great show. You got to check it out. And but you're absolutely correct. It's like I remember when I was making. Back in the 80s, early 80s, I was in a hair band traveling the state of Florida playing rock and roll, loud, obnoxious rock and roll. And I literally was lucky to take home $100 a week after all of our expenses, after our sound truck, after our lighting, after our, our sound guy and our crew and our guitar tech, because we tried to do the whole big 80s thing, and so we were lucky to take home any money. But, I can honestly say, although it was hard paying the bills then, but it was still, you were creating, you were making people happy, you were playing music. I felt good up there singing and playing my guitar. And although I could make 10 times the money doing something else, I learned at a very young age by doing 15. You'll know this. I did 15 horrible jobs, maybe 20, just horrible jobs.
Yeah.
I learned with those that being happy is more important, and satisfied in what you're doing is more important than making a lot of money. I mean, we got to pay our bills. But the truth is, if you can do something you love, in my opinion, and it's just my humble opinion, I think you win the game if you go home happy every day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very true. I used to, because like I said, I was a bouncer for a while, so I used to kind of like, I used to see those guys that are in the cover band every night, and I'm like, man, what the hell? Like, they just kind of like couldn't let the dream go. Like, that was my mindset back then, right? Like, they're over here just playing cover songs for chump change. But then I thought about it, and now that I'm getting a little older, I'm like, but they're having fun, man. They're, it's not hurting anybody. They're making money off of it. Kudos to them. You know? It's just if you've got it in you where you're a creative person, or you're like born to entertain, you got to let it out, man. Because even now it kind of comes back to me. I still like to keep a little electronic drum set in the room, and if I have an idea, I'll grab the guitar and throw something down, and I'll still create a little bit of music just because it's still in me, And it's kind of it kind of sucks sometimes, because you might have like the greatest singer, the greatest musician you've never heard of, and they're kind of just out there because they never found a way to connect or to get lucky or they didn't put in the work, So I need a number of those things, like. Because people tell me all the time, like, oh, you should have been a professional musician. I'm like, I'm a karaoke singer. I'm good. I enjoy it. It's fun, but I like that moment's kind of past. I'm not gonna go on American Idol and wow the nation or anything like that.
Well, the beauty of today, though, and I actually took a course to learn this myself. The beauty of today is, for instance, a guy like you've got this podcast, you've got to reach to your audience, you've got an audience out there. With the internet these days, if you know how to do what they call niche marketing focusing, you can find a niche market for whatever it is that you do. With 7 billion people on the planet, there's 100,000 people out there who would love what you do musically. Mm-hmm. And if you know how to market to those 100,000 people, you'd be surprised what you could do as a musician, just doing your own stuff in your own studio, using, social media to market to those little niche groups. And you'd be surprised. I mean, it's probably not going to set the world on fire, but I mean, I know guys who make another 20 grand a year, an extra 20 grand a year over and above their jobs, playing music and niche marketing their music to the people who like their kind of music. And there's people who like everything out there. I mean, I never thought I'd run into people who like what they call X scratch death metal. X scratch, it's a term I just heard. It's the heaviest type of death metal. I didn't even know it existed. I just heard this phrase the other day, but I actually looked some of it up, and it's so incredibly heavy with the guys screaming in the demonic voice and the instruments all distorted. It just sounds like you're in hell.
Right.
But I guess there's like a huge niche market out for this particular type of death metal. And this guy's making $100,000 a year. He's a nobody. You've never heard of him, but he's making $100,000 a year selling his CDs to his niche market.
That's interesting. They probably all tuned down to C or below that, huh? And just like that's maybe below that, because you have to start at that point. You have to start getting special guitars that and special strings that go that low, huh?
I guess so. That music's outside of my repertoire, so I'm not real sure, to be honest with you. I play pretty much straightforward pop, rock, and blues stuff. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've never heard the phrase either. X scratch. I think I actually saw it as a setting on my Roland drum kit. I'm like, what the hell is X scratch? Yeah,
I've never heard of it.
No, me neither. And it sounded so weird. You're right. It's got that kind of like, super tight snare drum on it. So that makes sense if it's really fast, like death metal.
Yeah, it's heavy. It's really deep and really evil and really heavy sounding. And it's not my cup of tea, but I totally get where people who would like that kind of music. There's another girl I ran into recently. She's doing the same thing. She's become an expert at niche marketing on social media. I can't even tell you her name now, and I've looked her up 50 times. I can never remember who she is. But supposedly she makes over $100,000 a year selling her products out there. And it's because she caters to these niche markets. And the whole deal, she actually sells a course, I think, where it's like for every dollar you spend, you make $5 back with this niche marketing. But it takes you a little while to find the people. So you spend a little bit of money till you zero in on the people that love your stuff. And then you just sell your stuff like crazy over the internet. And she sells nothing but downloads, no physical CDs or anything.
Wow. Maybe there's something to that. I've actually never heard it explained like that, but I might look into that. Moving on, I wanted to talk about, you wrote a couple novels, right?
Yeah.
Like how did that come to be? I have I have like that bug in me too, where I love writing, and everybody who loves writing talks about, oh, one day I want to write a book, right? But you mentioned you started when you were like 8 years old.
Yeah.
And did you start like having an idea to write a book at that age?
Yeah, I did. For some reason, I've always been a very creative guy, and truth is, I spent a lot of time alone as a kid. So your imagination seems to work overtime. I found myself telling tall tales when I was a little kid too, just because my imagination was going crazy. I was making up all kinds of stories that weren't true. And so one day I sat down and I started writing a book about some American soldiers who get lost in a really strange storm, and when they wake up after the storm, they're back in medieval times. And they're these American, like World War II soldiers who wake up and they've got these medieval knights and things like that around them. And I never really thought much about it. I think it was like 8 or 10 pages. And my mother came in one day and she sat down and started reading it. And she looked at me and she gave me a look. And for some reason, I thought I was in trouble because of the confused look on her face. But she goes, "Where's the rest of this?" And I said, I didn't write anymore. She goes, "I want to read the rest of this. Where's the rest of this?" And so that's kind of where it started. And then to give you the short version of it, at 17, I've been on my own since I was 15 years old. I lived in a motel, played blues guitar at 15 in a motel in Daytona Beach. I didn't have any family or anything. And so I was playing guitar in this little blues bar at 15 years old. So by the time I hit 17, I realized I was going nowhere with what I was doing, sitting in a beach bar playing. I'd be doing that in 50 years and drinking beer and be probably dead by then. So I just decided, I said, you know what, I wanted to do more with this. So since I don't have any family here and I don't really have anything to hold me here, I packed up my car and I moved to New York. And I just drove to New York and started looking for a job and lived pretty harshly for the first month or two. And when I got there, I realized that I was really into stories as well as music and the way they go together. So I automatically started studying acting and started working in theater. And when I wasn't playing in a band, I was doing a play or a musical, learned to dance. And so there was this guy named Sid Field a long time ago. He's kind of one of the originators of the How to Write a Screenplay, book. And I got his book, and he had some courses that were taught in New York. So I took some screenwriting courses, and I found out that I absolutely love writing screenplays. It's something that I really enjoy. When I'm on a concert tour, that's usually what I do. Is I'll sit down, like I'm leaving in. I've got a 2-week and a 6-week tour coming up here in a few weeks, and I'm going to write a couple new screenplays while I'm gone, because that's what I do when I've got the downtime when I'm on the road, is I write. So I knew that I wanted to write more than screenplays. So when you write a screenplay, you have to write minimally. You're supposed to leave everything. All you do is put the details down. And the trick of the screenplay is you kind of leave the rest up to the reader's imagination, because, a full 90-minute movie is only 100 pages. So you're putting the dialogue, the basic scene, but the trick I've learned over the years, and I teach a course on this actually, is you write just enough to trigger the imagination of the producer or the person reading the script. You let them fill in the blanks, and then they take it their own direction. If you put too much down, they usually pass on your screenplay because it's too detailed for them. But I knew I liked more than that. So I sat down one day and I said, I want to start writing novels. I want to have a couple of novels in my belt. And so I started my first novel, which is called The War of Angels, which is published worldwide right now. And it's a story about the Archangel Michael, who comes back to Earth to tell his twin brother, the other half of the Gemini twins. He tells his twin brother, who we know as Lucifer, that the deal's off. He broke the deal. He broke God's laws, and he broke the agreement with God. So he has to meet with God, and God will give him some ultimatums. Long story short, it ends up being another war between the angels of hell and the angels of heaven on modern day Earth right now. And it's really big Lord of the Rings kind of story and book. And so I started writing that when I was with a group many, many, many years ago. We were on the road 200 days a year. So I was on buses and planes a lot. So I started writing the novel. And then before I knew it, I enjoyed it so much. I was up to 450 pages. And I was like, man, I love this. I love writing novels. So then I started writing novels too. So now I've got my second novel I'm going to be releasing. I've actually had it finished for a while, but I didn't want to release it. But I'm going to release my second novel toward the end of this year. Okay.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, that's a lot of pages, man. Once you get on that, kick, you start going off on those tangents, and, it's like, it's such a snowball, man. Right. Like, I can't imagine you just like get stuck at like page 2, You must just kind of like keep going, right?
That's what it is. You allow your imagination to write the book. You don't think about it. You let the story go wherever it goes in your brain, and then you just write it down. People who try to force stories, those are screenwriters, because as a screenwriter, you sit down and pretty much have to force a story because you have a format you've got to stick to. I don't. I'm very fortunate. When I sit and write a screenplay, it's just kind of ingrained in me how to write one, because I've been doing it for so long, and I let it write itself. But with a novel, trick to writing a novel is let the book write itself, have great subject matter, and the other trick is keep notes as you go, because I guarantee you, when you get to page 200, you forget what your main character did on page 10 and who he was talking to. I guarantee it.
Yeah. I mean, you have the experience writing the novels, right? Did that lead you to writing, to making movies, or, I mean, was that going on at the same time? Because, I noticed on your social media, what's big right now for you is Rock and Roll the movie.
Yeah. It actually worked in reverse. I started writing screenplays first. It's kind of a weird story. Along with playing guitar and music, I've always been fascinated by movies. And so I got my first camera when I was really young. And the second I picked up a camera, I had to know everything about a camera. So I took courses and became a cinematographer and a photographer. I made my money right out of high school taking pictures of people. Oh. And because I knew I wanted to act, but what was the best way to make money? Take headshots for actors, $100 for 10 minutes of your time. It was an easy way of making money. In New York, there's 100,000 actors up there. So I took my camera and started taking pictures of people and making a living. And so then I got into high-end video with the first SVHS cameras that came out way back when. And so I started making independent projects and TV commercials. So I was into acting since I was really young. I started acting in high school, went immediately into theater when I went to New York at 17. But Where most actors say they like stage the most, they like doing plays. I'm just the opposite. I love doing musicals and plays, and I loved being on Broadway and all of that. Mm-hmm. But I love making movies. It's kind of like making music. It's like you sit down and you write a part out and you play it and then you add to it. Well, that's kind of what making a movie is about. You're doing one little piece at a time and you're piecing it all together. And there's a science and an art to that. So I started writing screenplays first. I started teaching acting when I was in 1990. And in that teaching, I had all my students work on camera. That was my step up from everybody else's classes. They actually worked on camera so they could see their work. And that's kind of what got me going. And then when I moved to LA in 1995, I was traveling the country up to then. I moved to LA. I went to a couple of I took a couple film courses on how to make movies. Mm-hmm. And then I just started shooting stuff. I started shooting things. And before you know it, I had some full screenplays written, and 10 years had gone by and I hadn't made a movie yet. And then 10 years later, I sat down with a guy named Philip Cohen and I said, look, I want to make a movie. And I've got this great script. He had read the script already. And at the table, he handed me a check to make the movie. So that movie was Rock and Roll the Movie.
So that's out on Tubi. Is it on Amazon Prime as well?
Yeah, it's on Amazon. It's on Vudu. It just hit Tubi, which is a big thing because Tubi's Fox. It's on Google Play. It's on what else? It's on a few other sites too. I have to actually Google it myself to see where the distributors got it these days. Because, like I said, I didn't even know it was on Tubi until I was watching Tubi and I saw it. I went, "Wait a minute, we're on Tubi."
Yeah, I think you can check the website Just Play. They usually list like where every movie is streaming. So I think
I'll check that out. Just Play.
Yeah, Just-Play. Yeah.
Okay.
Or Just Watch. Sorry. Just Watch. Yeah.
I'm going to punch that in so I don't forget. Just dash watch.
Watch. Yeah, I think that's it.
Oh, I got to check that out. .com?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. I'll check that out. Yeah, it was an experience. Rock and Roll the Movie was an awesome project, man. I got to write it. I got to direct it. I got to star in it. I got to score it. I even edited it and did the final mix and the color on it. So
everything has your fingerprints all over it.
that is my baby. That one. Yeah. I did it all on that one. We kept that one in the family. My wife actually cast the movie for us. She did a great job finding the best actors in the world. Her and a couple other ladies. And my daughter is in the movie with me. I play Steve Taylor, who's a burnout 80s rocker. Well, there's some flashback scenes where you see him as a little kid with a horrible mullet. That's my little girl at like 4 years old. She played young Steve. It came out really fun.
Yeah, I got to check that out. I just, I was reading about it today. I'm like, oh man, I should have watched it before the interview, but I'm going to check it out probably today or tomorrow. Just, watch a funny movie. And it looks interesting, man. It looks really entertaining.
It's really a good movie. We were on Amazon for a couple of years now, and to show you how it was received, the entire time it was on Amazon, it had a 4.5 star rating.
Okay.
And that is, if you've ever, anybody who has a movie on Amazon will tell you that is very, very hard to, because Amazon, a lot of people don't know this. You can have, like I just learned it the hard way. I have 65 good reviews. They're all great reviews. One bad review. One guy went on watched the movie, didn't like it. One review drops you a whole layer, which mathematically doesn't work out. But for some reason it did. So our movie just went from one bad review and 60 good reviews. It went from 4.5 stars to just under 4 stars, like 3 3/4 stars. But still, that's almost impossible because Rock and Roll is not a huge budget movie. It's a low budget movie. But it really came out great. I mean, we actually made magic with that movie. We made a $2 million minimum movie on $100,000. I mean, it had 15 locations, a 25-person cast, a 30-person crew. I mean, it was a full movie, and it was like the experience of a lifetime. It was probably the most fun I've ever had.
I was gonna say, yeah, with those ratings, man, I'm surprised with all the haters out there that just want to troll everything and anything.
It's hard to keep everybody happy, man, especially in today's world.
Mm-hmm.
People pretty much believe what they're told to these days. So,
yeah, for sure. Nobody wants to. Everybody wants to pick sides, but nobody wants to think for themselves. They want an already pre-established opinion to kind of jump onto on either side.
That's absolutely correct. I agree with you.
Yeah. And that goes for everything. I mean, Yeah, obviously in politics and whatnot, but in entertainment too, you'll see people just trying to tear things up, and it's like, somebody's putting in the work for this. You can't just go and say like, oh, it's not X, so it's terrible.
Yeah.
I,
Nice.
I hate to see that, because we gotta really kind of promote more, creativity and more, music being made, more movies being made. I think things are getting a little too redundant, man. Like I haven't heard a good new rock band in a long time. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I put it on rock radio every now and then just to kind of see like what's out there, because I tend to get in my space where, I'm like listening to podcasts or the same old stuff I've been listening to on Spotify for like, 10 years or whatever. But I try to see like what's new. And I hate to be one of those jerks that's kind of like polarizing and whatnot, but a lot of this new rock music sucks, man. I'm like, maybe it's just me being, tied to a certain style of music, but it doesn't sound like there's any creativity in it anymore. I mean, you're the career musician. What would you have to say on that matter?
Well, I found some pretty good new rock and roll out there. There's a few bands, but it's not like the old days where you had 50 hot new rock bands on the set. Pretty much like music has gone where most things grow over time. Music has minimalized. These days, 75% of what you're hearing on the radio is a bunch of people doing loops on their Apple computer and then throwing some vocals down. They're not playing instruments. They're not creating melodies. They're not stacking harmonies from their musical training. They're just using tools that are already in the computer. Especially like, I've got a friend who's real heavy in the rap world, and he agrees with me. He's a rapper and he agrees totally. He says, we don't do much. The only creativity in our music really, he goes, is the rap itself, the rhymes and the stories we tell. He goes, but this is how he put it. This isn't me putting it this way. He goes, we pretty much steal loops and steal other people's music and steal rhythms that we just rap over. He goes, we don't create music or soundtracks. Now, of course, they're not all that way. Some of them do. Some of them have great bands that they create stuff. But in rock and roll, I found too many of the rock bands today, and not all of them, of course. There's some great artists out there, but a lot of them are just copying rock bands of yesterday. They're just taking the same 3 and 4 chords. They're trying to sound like Plant and Page. They're trying to sound like this, yet another, rather than reaching into their heart, which is where creativity, heart, mind, and soul is where creativity comes from, and allowing that creativity to flow out and creating something new. In some respects, because I'm a little bit older, I'm not in my 20s anymore, so I might even be guilty of that a little bit myself, because I'm doing a new album right now, and it's an album I've been wanting to do for 20 years. We're calling it Back to the Garage. I have spent so much time over the last 25 years playing with established groups and being the replacement singer. Like, I've sung with Paul Revere and the Raiders, Bill Medley, the Righteous Brothers, the Beach Boys, the Fifth Dimension. I was the first guitar player for the Backstreet Boys. Yeah. I've really had a track record with these other groups. So it's, being that I was doing that full time, it kind of kept me from recording my own stuff. Well, I'm finally doing that now. I've written an album that we're finishing up as we speak called Darren Dowler, Back to the Garage. And what I did is I tried to create something new, of course, with my knowledge of music, which comes from the 80s, 90s, but I'm creating something new and new songs with that, trying to adopt the new style in with the old style and come up with a new sound. And, I think we've done it. I think we've really come up with, it's a real modern sound, yet it's got a sound that you feel at home with, but it's got a new modern feel and sound. A lot of good rock and roll guitar in it, that's kind of my thing. I love rock and roll guitar, and I love good rhythms and grooves. So, we're going to be releasing. I wish we had the pre-sale link up now since we're doing the show, but we don't have the pre-sale link up yet. But it'll be on my website in probably 2 to 3 weeks, the finished album. And I'm really excited about this album. It's songs that I've been wanting to do for 20 years.
Nice, yeah. I mean, I'm curious to hear it, man. Where's that going to be on your website?
Yeah, if you just go to darrendowler.com, I've got a music page there, and the pre-sale link will probably go up in the next couple of days. But if you of course, you send me I've got your email. When I get a couple of the songs done, I can email you some tracks. For sure, yeah. And are you gonna be on Spotify and all that, or? Yeah, I will eventually. I've not nurtured Spotify all these years. The only couple of things that are on Spotify under my name right now or a couple of songs that I did for movies years back. But with this album, we are going to upload this album onto Spotify. So I will finally have a Spotify presence that's of worth. You know what I mean?
You know,
you'll get to hear some of these great guitars in here.
Yeah, for sure. I want to hear that SG back there, man.
Oh man, that thing sings. Oh
Yeah, you mentioned on a Mesa Boogie. I'm like, oh dang, like, that must sound beautiful.
that's all I play, man. I play Mesa Boogie, and I've handpicked my guitars over the last 30 years. I'm trying to think. I bought my green Strat in 2001. So yeah, it's been, I guess, 20 years. And so over the last 20 years, I've handpicked each one of these guitars in this studio just for their sound and their place in my music. You know, so they're very special to me. And I work with really, really quality musicians from around the world. So,
You know, last thing I wanted to ask real quick, you know, as an entertainer, as somebody who, does movies and music and everything, right? How has this whole pandemic year been for you? I mean, has that really slowed you down at all, or have you just had more time to be creative? Because I know a lot of people who, you know, were doing music were on pause essentially. There's some people who just kind of gave up. You know, they said like, it's not worth it right now. I got to get a regular job. I'm not making any money. You know, the gigs are frozen. Did that affect you at all, or did you just kind of keep pushing through with other projects?
It did affect me. It affected me in multiple ways. In the film world, with having I've got a couple of films on Amazon and Google and all this stuff now. So in the film world, in a way, it helped me some because, excuse me, I was out in the rain all day because people were home watching movies. So more people were searching out movies than ever. But it wasn't, I wasn't setting the world on fire or anything like that. It absolutely crippled my concerts. Excuse me, I'm so sorry. As I told you before, I was out in the rain for a couple hours. It did shut my concerts down because I make the majority of my income doing live concerts. And I perform around the world. So literally worldwide, there were no concerts. So since a year ago, starting March 1st, so it's been over a year and a half, I haven't done a show. I'm doing my first show coming up September 5th. I go back to work. I'll be on a 12-day run. I have a week off after that, and then I go out for a 6-week run. So I am going back to work now. But no, it stopped me in the live venue without question. I was done. It crippled everything I was trying to do live. But like you said, I spent more time in my studio. I wrote songs. I wrote a new, my next film project. And I don't know if I even mentioned this, but I started a new production company. When I moved from LA, I'm in Kansas City now. I moved from Los Angeles to Kansas City. So my company, Rocking and Rolling Films in LA, doesn't exist anymore. But since I've moved to Kansas City, I've opened KC Film Productions. And our first project is actually a presentation pilot that we're shooting a new show for Netflix.
Nice.
Yeah, we're shooting they haven't picked it up yet, but we're going to shoot the pilot. We're going to present it to Netflix. If they don't pick it up, we'll present it to the 10 biggies, and
there's so many services out there, man.
Content is king now, my friend.
And like you mentioned, somebody will watch it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I get emails from like around the world for the movies that I have out. I've got Rock and Roll Movies, my main one, but I've been in a lot of movies. I was in Hancock with Will Smith. I was in Eagle Eye with Billy Bob Thornton years back. I've been in 20 different movies and TV shows, but I get emails from around the world because of streaming. People see. I got an email from a guy in Scotland who literally said, "We sat up all night, watched your movie 3 times, drinking Scotch whiskey and laughing our arses off."
That's cool, man.
So they see it around the world, and so we're going to really, we're actually doing a huge marketing push for Rock and Roll the Movie this year since it hit Tubi, since it's on Fox now. We're going to put a lot more time, effort, money, and marketing into it than we did when it was just on Prime. Even though Prime's huge, Tubi's it's a really big step for us because Fox is enormous, but this new series is going to be a really cool story about a bounty hunter. So I finally get to play the tough guy, which will be cool.
You're gonna have Dog the Bounty Hunter in there?
No, Dog will be there. This will be a real bounty hunter. This guy has real guns.
There you go. Not just the pepper spray, right?
That's right. Yeah, it's a good story too. A story about a bounty hunter, a real hardcore ex-Marine bounty hunter who finds out he's got a daughter he never knew about. So for the first time in his life, he's got to try to be a dad, and he has no idea how to do it.
Oh. Seems like it's a good story there to pull people in. before we close up, or is there anything else you want to throw out there about your projects?
Well, a couple of neat things are going on. Like I said, anybody's interested in my music, please just go to darrendowler.com, look on the music page. They can find everything musical there. And my new album will be up in approximately 2 weeks. The pre-sale link will be up in a day or two, probably maybe three days. Look up The War of Angels, which is my book. I'd love for you guys to get my book and send me an email. Let me know how you like it. And then the other thing I'm doing is, and I've been doing it since 1990, I only work with a handful of people. But my way of giving back is I work with up and coming actors around the world, and we work over Zoom, and I train actors, one-on-one over the internet. Before, if you weren't in LA or New York, you couldn't get training. Well, now with the internet, we've fixed all that. Mm-hmm. So if anybody out there is a up and coming actor or anything, just go to my company page, which is kcfilmproductions.com, hit the acting tab, and you can see where you can contact me and sign up for acting lessons right then and there. I'm only interested in dealing with serious people who really want to book in the acting world. I'm not doing the guy who wants to experiment. I'm looking for real actors who want to take their craft all the way to the top. Mm-hmm. And then that's pretty much it, really. I'd love for people to check out my music, be watching for me on Spotify this year, because I am going to be there. And the book, The War of Angels, and definitely check out Rockin' the Roll, the movie on Tubi. And if you do watch the movie tonight, drop me an email. Let me know what you think.
For sure. Well, it was a real pleasure having you on, Darren. I was looking forward to this interview, man. I saw all the things you did, and I'm like, man, there's just so much meat on the bone there. I only kind of dipped in right there, but I'm sure there's so many other projects and experiences that you've had that you could talk forever about. But glad to have shared a bit of your story with everybody. But yeah, man, I'll tag you on tomorrow when this is out, and hopefully people get to check out your movie, check out your music and everything. But thank you for being on. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on the show, and send me that link, and I'll make sure that all my people and all my social media engines know about it too.
For sure. For everybody listening at home, I appreciate it. Thank you. Fuck you and good night. Subscribe to the Ignorance is Strength podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. Like, follow, and share on Facebook and Instagram at Ignorance is Strength Podcast, and on Twitter at The Ignorance Pod.
There's a spirit crying deep inside my soul. Somewhere in my life began this hole. There's a feeling somewhere deep inside my heart. Somehow I've known it's been there from the start. And no matter how I try to soothe the tears in our eyes, I fail. There's a time I know we just need to let go, for sanity's sake, to move on down the road. But believing you'll be in my heart no more, I'm having a hard time walking through that door. In my heart I need you there, otherwise I can't make myself care about the world or anything at all. You to me were everything, my sole inspiration. You made my heart sing. Without you I'm lost and wandering abroad. settle just for love. As time goes by, I've realized what I've lost. Losing you came at way too high a cost. We cannot know the future thrill, it's past. When you walked out that door, I could not know the pain would last. And now we have to say goodbye to the tears in our eyes. And we must walk on, leave our memories now and say goodbye. You to me were everything, my sole inspiration. You made my heart sing. Without you I'm lost and wandering abroad. After you I'll have to settle just. You to me were everything. Oh yeah, you made my heart sing. Without you I'm lost. Oh, after you I'll have to settle just. You to me were everything, my sole inspiration. You made my heart sing. Without you I'm lost and jumped on a boat for a cruise down to the islands. Paid lots of money to float around on the sea. There were pineapples, coconuts, and all kinds of melons. And I'm not talking about the kind that grow on trees. My mouth watered as she ran on by, splashing through the water, she made me cry. Every time I saw her, thought I'd die. Give me those, 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 give me those island girls, island girls, island girls. I want those island girls. Run down the beach, I'm tripping on beautiful bodies. I ask a girl if I can lay down and share her space.